Kia ora koutou. Hey, I'm Mike from Surge.coach. We partner with leaders to maximize your organization's potential. We hope you've had a cracking year, or as best you can under the circumstances. In this video, we're going to give away a free lesson from our Business Agility Foundations course. We are going to focus on the values of our business agility model and how that comes into the business agility radar. So what is in this for you? You will be able to understand what makes up the business agility radar and for what reason. What problem is it actually solving? You'll then be able to go to your organization and measure it yourself, allowing you to have a high-level current state analysis. This current state analysis will allow you to set objectives, outcomes, and ways of measuring success towards business agility. It'll also allow you not to waste time in areas that probably isn't the right focus, and we'll get into that very shortly. But first of all, Merry Christmas from the Surge family, and we look forward for feedback on these videos. If you want any different lessons, if you want any other training online, just let us know and we'll see what we can do. Awesome, so let's crack into this. We know that the world has changed. It's forever changing. It's going through evolution, and we know that the word VUCA or VUCA is said quite a lot, and that's for good reason. We are finding that the world is volatile, i.e. the speed and the rate of change is forever increasing. We know that there are a lot of surprises that come up in the market. COVID-19 was a surprise, and we are most likely going to get more surprises. So it's uncertain. The future is uncertain. We are moving into a complex world. It's multifaceted. Now, what does this mean for organizations? What it means is we're going to find more and more connections between other organizations and industries. That is going to make competitive advantage much more difficult in the future. Ambiguity, ideal versus actual. It is getting to a point now where planning is getting too hard to actually even have any value. Mintzberg in 1994 said that strategic planning should be phased out. It's still around, and yet he predicted in 1994 this decline in competitive advantage from strategic planning. And we're seeing it every year getting less and less. It's getting less and less of an advantage to do, right? So how do we help and how do we move our organizations to deal with a VUCA environment or a VULCA environment? First of all, we're going to have vision. We're going to have a vision for the future. That vision of the future is like a North Star or a purpose or some form of future state that is your current direction you're aiming towards. We're going to understand that the world is going to change and there will be surprises, and it's okay. We're going to have the frameworks, and we're going to have clarity around how complex the environment is. And lastly, we're going to have agility. Our delivery models are going to be flexible, they're going to adapt to the environment, and they're going to respond to customer demands. So VUCA can be fixed with VULCA. Very simple, right? So let's go through the 4 different values that Surge has in its business agility model. If we talk about strategic planning for a moment, how does 36-month strategy plan sound? Can you imagine 3 years ago what your life was like? Is it different to today? I bet it is. It's almost guaranteed to be just due to COVID-19, let alone due to Uber disrupting the market. And Uber has tried many things. Uber's gone into couriers. So when you think about Uber couriers, Uber itself, the taxi service, Uber Eats, They're just disrupting the market constantly, and they're not the only ones. We are going to find many startups that have a lower barrier to entry to disrupt your industry. Incumbents will need to adapt. Variation is this really weird thing. I always say that I've got a phone that I do not need, but I seem to constantly be upgrading it. My phone now has more technology than what landed us on the moon. Now, when we think about that, it means that the customer has more access to greater variable products. Keep that in your mind. And globalization. Now, globalization, people say, started in the 70s. It definitely did. However, what we found is that since 2010, it's become almost a one world system for global companies. They are dominating. And the barrier to entries to new companies trying to do similar things is decreasing. And what we're finding as well is that countries like New Zealand and Australia, who were quite segmented from the global market, are now becoming very involved in the global market and are losing. They're losing mostly due to the fact that a lot of the industry growth is in technology, which with my fiber connection, we could do anything. So when you think about that, how can your organization leverage not only its location, but leverage everything inside of New Zealand with fiber connections, with the human capital and assets that we've got here, and with our connections and trade networks. So the market kept evolving. There's nothing we can do about this. It will continue to evolve. Strategic planning is slow. It's not motivating. Why is it not motivating? It's not motivating because initiatives normally come from the top without a purpose. They're telling people what to do and almost how to do it in some organizations. They may have some controlled innovation. So if you've ever had a controlled Friday Innovation Day or innovation sprint, you'll find that they're not actually as innovative as you think they are. Creativity does not come through planning. It comes from almost downtime, going for a walk. Whereas strategic agility is focusing on an emergent strategy. It's understanding that things are going to change and therefore we must position ourselves to adapt to things that may change. It really is intrinsically motivating because there's no way someone up the top can actually make an initiative plan that will allow enough speed of the market from the knowledge workers. So you have to empower the knowledge workers. It creates continuous improvement and continuous innovation. Why is that? That happens because those knowledge workers, because they've been empowered, they make decisions on the floor when they need to, and that allows them to pivot very quickly instead of having to go up the hierarchy and down the hierarchy to get any decision made, which is very demotivating for most workers. Now, we're not saying that strategic planning is not valuable. We're just saying that strategic agility is more valuable. Organizations that have been fine, the stock price has been going up, they've had a competitive advantage, you got to remember, your customer is ready for change. Having a vision allows your organization to focus on that why. People don't buy the solution. They buy based on the problem that it solves for them. What is the problem it's solving? However, there's a lot of competition on problem solving. So most people, especially in worlds with adequate wages, will focus on companies that they want to deal with. The why, the purpose behind their brand. Are they sustainable? Are they feeding the children? All these little nuances really help people make good decisions. The specialization, that used to work really well. It used to make real sense. In specialization, you would have salespeople, you'd have marketing people, customer service, technology departments. This made sense when efficiency was king. Now, when was efficiency king? Probably all the way from 1920s all the way up to 1980s. Because if you could do something cheaper than your competition and scale faster than they can by reducing your costs and lowering the price, which increases the barrier to entry, you are onto a winning formula. In Frederic Laloux's book, Reinventing Organizations, you could call that the orange. In the orange culture, you'll find that efficiency can work really well, especially if it's outcome driven. But as you know, the value is at the end. If you've got an amazing finance department, an amazing customer service team, but your operations team is lagging behind, then you've got waste in your system. And that's why we had all those big lean transformations, especially in the 90s, because they were realizing that getting to the value at the end was more important. The problem we've got at the moment is Generation Z are coming of age. They are already in their early 20s now. And what we're finding from them is they already know they can't buy a house. They already know that they're not going to get a CEO position because we've removed all the middle layer of management. There's no way of moving up the chain for them. They want more. They want purpose. They want to make sure they've put a ding in the universe. And if you're a leader who's struggling with people who are not motivated, think about your vision, not your plan. We've got a globalized workforce now. I can hire almost anything that's not manufacturing. I can hire manufacturing as well if I wanted to, but if I want to have it made in New Zealand, I can hire every other industry outside of New Zealand. It's very easy to collaborate. And since COVID-19, we have found that this is growing exponentially. I personally have had contacts from Singapore, Thailand, North America, and Europe. I could not imagine working on a different time frame, but if you want that, you can have that. Now, if you're living in Wellington in New Zealand, which is the capital here in New Zealand, you only had a real choice between some minor private companies and the government. Now you have access to Google, Yahoo, Facebook, all these wonderful companies. And look, open knowledge share is now really important. Why is that important? If you don't have open knowledge share, you will struggle to adapt to your environment quickly. Your competitive advantage will decrease. People will leave and their intellectual property will leave with them. So not only are we losing people, we're also losing the ability to offload that knowledge to somebody else. We need to have open knowledge share. Functional silos, they had a higher cost of delivery. They had low motivation. And we knew this. We knew this 100 years ago. This interesting chap called Karl Marx, and I always say I ignore his manifesto, but I focus on his behavioral science, especially around alienation. Now, Karl Marx stipulated quite bluntly that if you alienate a worker from their family, from the customer, and from the purpose, you will find a demotivated staff member. And we are seeing just that now. For things that cannot be automated by machines and technology, we need those people to love what they do. So we need them closer to the customer, and we need them to own their work, and most likely we need them actually closer to their families. That work-life balance makes total sense. Some quick example on the power of a crowd versus specialization. And this is an old example, but I quite like it. So Francis Galton was a country fair in 1906. So the story goes. And to be honest, I've never quite believed this story. It's 1906. I'm sure a whole bunch of fibbings going on. He came across a competition that you had to guess the weight of an ox. 787 guesses, and they calculated the average. It was 1,197 pounds. The actual weight of the ox was 1,198 pounds. So the entire crowd was very close when you aggregate the data and average it out to the actual weight of the ox. And they went into detail to say, hey, look, this, the experts were actually further off. Again, I didn't really believe it until a few years ago, using software to do a mass study. Over 3,500 people were actually looked at, and look at Penelope the cow. And as you can see quite clearly, there is a massive range going on. However, the average guess was 1287 pounds and Penelope's weight was 1355. Crowd power, team power was more important than the individual. But here's where it gets interesting. When we looked at the specialists, the experts, yes, the deviation was less. As you can clearly see, they're closer from that kind of average. But their average was 1272, further away. And I find that fascinating. These are butchers, farmers, these are people that should know more closer to the weight of the average. But when you have specialists, they tend to overthink and think they're right, whereas a lot of normal people, we just tend to just go on gut feel. And the gut feel aggregated will give us a better average. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because as we're starting to realize this moment's going on, we don't want groups of people anymore under a manager. So if you could guess which one's which, you have a common interest on the left, a common purpose on the right. On the left, we have individual accountability, individual goals. And on the right, we have mutual goals and mutual accountability. So which one? Which one is actually the team versus the group? Yeah. So the team, a true team, is a set of individuals that have a common goal and a common set of accountabilities. Why is this important? Not only the Penelope idea, but it's also around the collaborative nature of those people and how they actually will increase productivity, increase happiness, and therefore increase customer value at the end. We had some examples from Atlassian. So Atlassian last year, 2019, actually sacked all of the people that were basically had hero complexes, that weren't part of a team. And if you think that's crazy, then look at their productivity since then. They created good culture by focusing on supporting teams and not groups of people. The Navy SEALs have another common example that I like. So Navy SEALs, they get their KPIs are the amount of people who pass, but they can't decrease the barrier to actually pass in Navy SEALs. So they looked at some science and they went, you know what? What a great idea this will be. If we have Navy SEALs and we put the best people, potential people, inside every squad, they'll raise everybody up. What do you think happened? Less Navy SEALs went through. People dropped out. And they were perplexed. Yet if we look at the science, the behavioral science, we can see why. Nobody wants to be part of a group with one person who is dominating and making everybody else look bad. People like to have people around them have similar skills and ability. That creates a unison between those people. And the whole point of Navy SEALs is that you have a team or a squad. So the next year they went, oh, this didn't work. So they put all the best together and all the worst together, still do far better than I would. And they actually had better results. More people actually went through and became Navy SEALs. Because when little Jimmy falls over, he doesn't feel guilty because his mate's also falling over and they're helping each other up. They're egging each other on. John, who's flipping amazing, doesn't hold back. He's competing against people in his own class. So the best people did even better, and the people who were most likely to actually fail were more likely to actually pass, which is quite cool. We can't understand this from the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We have our basic needs, and most of that, especially in the first world countries, they are already met. We know they're already met. We have great systems of social welfare that allow us to feel comfortable, that we know that our shelter, food, water are all met. We've moved out of that now. We know we've moved out of that. Now we need to work on psychological needs. And that's the belonging. That's feeling that we're part of something. Hence why a vision from an organization really helps to drive that. And we need to feel accomplished. Now, we can feel accomplished individually, or we can feel accomplished as a team. And I'm here to say that as a team makes more sense. So creating teamwork can give you a belonging. Having self-direction can give you esteem. And having mastery will allow you to self-actualize and receive your full potential. So we can really use business agility to actually allow people to reach their pinnacle, as long as they're intrinsically motivated to do so, hence the vision and hence the empowerment. So how do you become a team? How do you get a team up and running? Because I've heard many ways of doing it. Well, here's how I do it. I ensure that they have a common objective and they commit to it. If they don't commit to it, I tick the box group and I treat the whole situation different. If I can have a team commit to a common objective, I'll then have them ask themselves, how do we have diverse ways of thinking? How do we ensure that we have the right skill sets we need to deliver without dependencies? And I don't just mean technology dependencies. I mean dependencies overall. What does the value stream look like? And which skills do we need to come up with an idea and deliver it and see the customer smile at the end? And lastly, teams make decisions together and they feel safe to do so. And that's where psychological safety comes in. Psychological safety is talked about quite a bit, but when we really think about it, the most important thing about psychological safety is the ability for people to say things and adapt to changes while having that. If they don't feel safe, they won't say things, you won't potentially improve, and leaders have to step in. Very, very quickly, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Great book if you want to go read it, but we're going to quickly go over it. We have absence of trust, which can be caused by invulnerability. We have fear of conflict, which creates artificial harmony. Lack of commitment, which creates ambiguity. And avoidance of accountability, which equals low standards. Low standards result in inattention to results, which are normally resolved by status and ego. Now, I quite like this book, and I'm a big fan of it. I don't want to go into too much detail in this lesson, but as you can see, they're kind of all linked, right? And why do they all link? They all link because if there's an absence of trust, then you're not going to feel free to actually have conflict. And if you can't have conflict, you're not going to commit. And if you're not going to commit, you're going to avoid the accountability. And then you're going to have no results. So if you want to fix one of those, try and find out where in the team things are breaking down, where these are just becoming a group of people, where they're all becoming I people, not we people. And that's kind of the key bit there. So the employee kept evolving, especially in the last 30, 40 years. Specialization is low motivation because it's not linked to the customer. It's a silo experience for the customer. So not only are we getting lower employee value, we're also getting lower customer value from specialization. But it costs less. So there's one thing, I guess, which again, remember, business agility is not for everybody. It really isn't for everybody. If you have an organization that works on commoditization, then you don't actually need to adapt. You just need to lower costs. But you also need the right employees that's what they actually want to do. What we promote is cognitive diversity. So team cross-functionality, so focusing on teams that are cross-functional and closer to the customer. So by removing those lines from the customer, You can have a great little agile team over here, and if they got 15 steps to the customer, they're not actually as motivated that if you bring all those people together and deliver straight to customer. If you can see a smiling face, you feel a lot better. That's a reward. That is more motivation than paying them more. Again, we don't want to drop specialization at all. We don't want to say now everyone's just a developer of value. We still need some specialization, especially as we go through this transition paradigm. But we're saying that cognitive diversity is more valuable. A good way of looking at this is if you do this test for psychology profiles and have a look at how many people are concrete sequential, abstract, etc. So for instance, I'm a concrete sequential person. What does that mean? I like facts and figures and I like linear processes. But if you have all of us in a team, I can guarantee you will come up with exactly the same solution. It's the same with abstract randoms. Most of the entrepreneurs in the world are abstract randoms. And why they're abstract randoms? Because they tend to put things together and it kind of happens randomly. We won't get on. It's very hard to get on, shall I say. Some of my good friends are abstract randoms, and yes, they do actually frustrate me. But as long as you can empathize with them, it's okay. But this is an interesting way to look at how you can create diversity of thought. We also look at this in terms of the T-shaped person. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of T-shape, but it does give a good example of this. I-shaped is all about being an expert in one thing. A generalist or a general manager is capable of a lot of things, but not expert in anything. And then T-shape is you have your specialization, but you can also help out in a whole bunch of other things. It's a good way of looking at it. It doesn't always work, and that's why I don't promote this as a massive tool, but it is a tool for your tool belt to get people to understand that yes, you can do a lot of these things. You are capable of it, but it may not be the most productive. So when we think about customer experience, we tend to look at some of the studies that are coming out. The customer of the future we talk about, right? In the future, this is going to happen. Well, here's some studies that have just happened now. Customers that expect companies to understand them is now 74% of customers. That's a lot, right? Customers who are willing to pay more for a great experience, 86%. And this makes sense. I'm going to pay at least $1 more for a coffee than the person who actually smiles and remembers my name. And that sounds silly because it's exactly the same product I'm buying, but it's the experience I'm paying for. And lastly, customers that have a positive experience is more influential than great advertising. 63% already, and that's growing. What I love about this is we're tending to find that advertisement is getting lower return on investments than word of mouth, than promoting your vision and creating a great customer experience. It's not the future, it is now. Nothing ever becomes real till it's experienced. John Keats. It's a quick example of this because I love my data. The Temkin Group found that companies that earn $1 billion annually, and there is some variation of smaller companies, can expect a $700 million average increase over 3 years of investing in customer experience. That is huge. And the reason why those companies get such a big return is because they're making the push first. They're getting the competitive advantage. So think about it in terms of those companies are going out, grabbing that competitive advantage. And what we're finding is all the other companies, even if they make the transition now, it's too late. They won't get a competitive advantage, they'll just get an even playing field. And that's what I love. We're at this point right now where you as leaders can actually make the decision to transform towards agility for the greatest competitive advantage. Because if your competitor does it, I guarantee you'll be playing catch up. Too often are strategic transformations about high performance. And I admit, I do that as well. I talk about performance, productivity. I don't like efficiency, I like productivity. But we got to remember, the customer is really what we're doing it for. We're not doing it for our internal partners or clients or stakeholders. It's all about the customer at the end of the day. Here's a great image from a well-known framework called the Scout Agile Framework. As you can see, the customer's at the end. Now, to their point, it is 2020 now. There is a SAFe 5.0 that was released, I think, a few months ago, maybe 8 months ago now, and the customer is more central. But as you can see, this is a very new thing. Scrum, a very popular agile delivery method or framework. And in this delivery framework, you'll find they have a product owner. The product owner is a customer representation. It's not the customer. It is another step towards that customer. Again, both of these, I would say, are very 1990s. And we've moved on from these. I look forward to seeing the data out of SAFe 5.0, mind you, which looks too good. So why do we do this? Why do we do this? We do this because we could be afraid to fail in front of our customers. Yeah, no, totally, I get that. I think, especially in the 80s and 70s, if you failed in front of your customers, it would be publicized. Now we're finding if you fail but openly admit you fail, customers reward you. You get more because organizations, especially large corporates, are looked at as some form of evil corporation. The ones that are transparent are tending to do a lot better. We know best. Well, of course you do. If you know best, then stop watching this video because there's nothing to learn. It's different here. I mean, I've heard that so many times. Mike, you don't understand. It's different here. Yes, I totally agree. Every organization is bespoke. Every culture is bespoke. Every niche customer segmentation could be different to somebody else's. Totally agree. However, it doesn't stop the fact your customers are segmenting themselves. We're not doing it. They're segmenting themselves. And now the 20-year-old female vegan who loves sport on a Sunday will only buy from companies that support vegans who play football. That's a really extreme example, Michael. But it's happening. The customers are evolving. We're not forcing them. They're doing it themselves. And if you want to stand behind and let it happen, by all means. So what we're saying is product centricity, building things no one wants, is not good. It's cold and old, but you know what? It's efficient. So if you want efficiency, that is part of your strategic direction. If your board of directors have said, actually, we're going to push towards the right, we're focusing on efficiency, we're going to commoditize all of our products. Awesome. No, great. That's your strategy. I can't complain. However, for the vast majority of organizations who have to work in the value add region or the innovation space, you need to be aware of the customer experience. Customers, they then feel like they're part of something. Things are tested earlier with massive feedback cycles. And by massive, I mean like there's lots of them. Right, this whole video is a testing early scenario. Do you like the audio visual? Do you like the content? Are the slides good? I know you'll all let me know. It reduces your advertisement spend because you don't need to. You focus on customer experience and let them do the rest. That funnel, that marketing funnel is a lot easier to work with. If you focus on the customer and on their experience, making it the maximum that they can get to increase the customer value. So you're saying we need to find out what the customer wants before we start building stuff? Would help. A lot of industries. So when we think about employee motivation, and we touched on this before, and as you can see, what we're building up to is all four of these values are all interlinked. We mostly have pyramid structures. I think you can all know what they are, right? At the bottom, you have knowledge workers, then you have management and specialists, functional heads, senior leadership, and the CEO, the boss. And what happens is, if you can't get what you want, you go up and down, and you waste a whole bunch of time. It's fantastic. Those making decisions are not near the customer. And I think Simon Sinek's quote where he says, talks to CEOs and says, what's your purpose? And they say, it's to serve the customer. He's like, when's the last time you saw a customer? No. Your job is to look after the people, who look after the people, who look after the people, who look after the customer. There is no need for the CEO to make any decisions other than the vision. As Simon says, Chief Vision Officer would make far more sense than Chief Executive Officer. It's a wasting bureaucracy, as we've just said, and I can't imagine anyone who hasn't experienced this, the absolute waste that goes in trying to get a decision made. Knowledge workers, they don't feel autonomous. And because they don't have autonomous decision making, they can't pivot. And in fact, they won't even raise these issues. They're like, what's the point? And nothing gets done. Very quickly, the stages of leadership. To talk about situational leadership. When you first start in leadership roles, you tend to micromanage a lot. It's an autocratic leadership style. It's you demand authority. You basically have low supporting behavior from your teams. You probably won't have teams. You have just groups of people. It has a positive aspect though in repetitive manual tasks. Things that we're automating right now. It does have a little bit of, I think it's moderate correlation with success. You move into management because your team are not performing. And you realize, okay, right, I'm going to change how I do things, right? I'm going to focus on instructing the team and I'm going to mark the results, right? I'm managing the team. I may give them maybe the what and they'll do the how, and I'm just going to manage them. Still autocratic leadership style, but you tend to get better results in short-term knowledge workers. And I always make the example of project managers, especially with contract resources. You can drive them into the ground, you'll get positive results, they'll burn out, they'll leave, but you've been successful. Is it good for long-term competitive advantage for organization? No, it's not. Can it be used during a crisis? Yes, you can manage during a crisis. And our own Prime Minister has shown that. Jacinda Ardern, she managed personally, and we've just found out from The Guardian that was true, that she managed it personally and made decisions. And it worked. Well, depending on what side you take, but from our point of view, it worked. You move into facilitation mode. Why do you move into facilitation mode? Because you realize a lot of your teams are highly trained people who know more than you, are better at doing things than you. So the team are showing very high supporting behavior. So you basically make it democratic decision to give them authority, right? And you facilitate their learning. This is the kind of area of leadership that I think Scrum Masters and Agile facilitators do very well. And for leaders in the room, you could emulate that very quickly. And then not only do you not need a Scrum Master or an Agile facilitator, you will have better outcomes for your organization and probably be more liked as well. When you stop getting any productivity gains, you tend to start asking a lot of questions. And then you realize that you need to participate. It's a participation leadership style. And this allows you to ask questions, let the team decide. You get high supporting behavior. You see that. And if you see that, you know you're in the right place. This is very positive for high performance. And again, this is what Agile coaches, senior leaders do. You tend to get a lot more higher performance around asking the questions, getting them to have those aha moments, i.e. David Rock from the Quiet Leadership book, those aha moments. And then the greatest people are the ones who are not even required. Laissez-faire, leadership style, social authority. Leader supports a team with a vision and gets out of their way, right? So I love this when I see a really good coach who's barely doing any work. And people say, oh, what's that guy or girl doing? And you're like, being an awesome leader, because they're there if they need them, but they don't actually have to do anything anymore. You get a lot of innovation from that. And if innovation is what you want, that's where you want to push your leaders towards, or ask them, to be fair. I simplified this a little bit. Situational leadership role that I do myself, depending on the behaviors of a team or group, but start with team, I move between teach, facilitate, coach, and support. As I move around, I need less time with teams. I can have more teams. A good example of this, when I first go into an organization as a Scrum Master, I may have 1 to 3 teams. I'm teaching and facilitating, and then I'm facilitating and coaching, and then I can have probably between 6 and 12 teams. And then when I'm supporting, I can support probably 300-400 teams because they shouldn't need me anymore. It's situational to the team. So all of this you got to remember, just because you're an amazing leader, the team may not actually want that. They may want management for the time being. And you want to be just one step ahead. Just one step ahead at all times. Yeah. Who's up for some coaching? This is where coaching goes wrong. You know, when you just ask questions and you're not doing it for a specific reason. I quite like this. Feel free to pause the video and have a laugh. But you don't just want to ask questions to get the solution you want. They're not open questions. You want people to fail. That allows you to feel that they're learning. You want them to fail very, very small and fast. Why? Because the impact is less. You don't want to let somebody walk on a program and fail the whole program and cost millions of dollars. That's just Barney. But what you want to do is basically have little small failures that they learn from, and you'll coach them through that. So why am I saying this? Why am I saying all these things? Because the culture kept evolving. And again, there's nothing we can do about it. Culture internally in organizations, culture outside organizations, it is evolving very rapidly. The more global networks we get, more Facebook, everything else, we are just getting more aligned, and there's nothing that any organization can do about it. Hierarchies are slow to respond, they're not motivating, and they reduce innovation. You lose great leaders as well. You can have a great leader as a team lead who is fantastic potential, who could probably have 300-400 people under them. And you put them in a row, and because they're not doing their KPIs, around slapping everyone's hand, that they don't move up the ranks. And then they leave, and you've lost a great leader. Autonomy is intrinsically motivating. It creates new ways of working, so you don't require frameworks to keep on being brought in by new fad coaches, and it creates an environment for high innovation because it just naturally happens. Again, I think there's one hierarchy called the pancake hierarchy. It doesn't mean there should be no hierarchies. I'm sure there is legit reasons for that. I believe in a network of living organism. I like that a lot. But each to their own, it depends on the situation. We're just saying autonomy is more valuable. So, this is the business agility radar, right? And you just saw this then, the green organizations. Part of the course we talk about green organizations and what that means and how do we get there. But I'm going to quickly jump to the actual, business agility radar. And what this does is it allows me to talk you through why these are all important. And as you can see, there's 4 segments. They have a diagonal. So strategic agility impacts customer experience quite a lot. They should be very similar. Culture and diversity on the bottom right, and employee empowerment are also very similar. They should have similar results. If they're not similar results, if you find there are different results, then it's very easy fixes to find. And this is where this model gets really powerful. Also, strategic agility will have an influence over diversity and, again, empowerment and customer experience. Why? Because employee value equals increase, moderate correlation with customer experience. And I love that. That's why I find it fascinating. So the results, we'll talk about at the end on how you actually get there. But we'll just go through every question. So feel free to do this yourself. It's down at the bottom there, surge.coach/BAR, the Business Agility Radar. This was named by the cohort 1 of our first class, and I let them name all of the IP of Surge, and they came up with some good and bad The search canvas is, I still think, very bad, but hey. So vision. Again, I think the good thing about why we've gone through this in this way is you can understand why vision is important. Someone once said to me, and I really liked it, is you can't be half pregnant. You're either in or out. So when you do this, make sure that you actually are fully all those words. So there is no strategic vision. The strategic vision for management, so they have one in management, sorry, but no clear correlation or connection between the work and the vision. And that happens a lot, especially if you get a big four consultancy company that comes in, creates a vision, set of values, a strategy, and then over here, the actual work being created is completely different. That's very common. One strategic vision for all to see and work towards. And as you can see, that's your amber. Tribe has input into shaping the strategic vision. Work and vision are connected. So why is that important? That's important because if we want a vision that makes sense, that's purely connected, we want more connection between the leadership and the tribes. And lastly, strategic vision is driven by the customer and teams use this to drive decision making. Beautiful world. Hardly ever see that, let's be fair. Again, so we're moving on to the next stage of strategic agility. Emergent, which is all about emergent strategy. So you could have no strategy. If you're going to put that, make sure you double check, because I'm pretty certain most organizations have a strategy. Strategy is created every 3 to 5 years by executives. That's phasing out right now. That sort of command, ego planning is kind of getting rid of. It's been replaced by goals are set every 3 to 5 years. Right? And you may find those. You may find goals every 3 to 5 years and then strategic initiatives done yearly. 30 to 120 day strategy plans are being used with a single prioritized backlog. So the whole organization. And you can do this at a tribe level, you know, at an art level, it's just fine. You can use them both ways. I like to use it at the organizational level because that's where I like to play, but you can use this as a department as well. This allows you basically to understand how you draw down funds for finance. So if you ever wondered how you get finance on board, you show your value and show how drawing down funds every quarter makes way more sense. And then lastly, the strategy is that there is no strategy. So not we have no strategy. We have a strategy to say there is no deliberate strategy. And everyone adds to the single backlog and the most valuable work is completed first. So everyone's adding these fun things and you have a mechanism for value and it's prioritized. And you're always pulling from the top. Pivot on demand. So you need the ability to respond and adapt your organization. If you don't, you're just going to have the same problems again and again. And you may do this transformation, but if you don't allow the pivot on demand, then what's going to happen is you're going to have a great vision, you're great emergent, but you won't actually pivot. And why is that bad? Because you could be 2 months into a program of work and you go, oh, I've spent 2 months now, I might as well continue. It's like, well, no, if the customer doesn't want it, you've just saved $1 million by not continuing the project. The strong fight for budget. Management raises business cases based on budget. Quite common. Business cases are raised for yearly budget approval with return on investment. Yep. As an ex-accountant, I love that. Lean business canvas or similar are produced and approved within a financial quarter with either a focus on competition or a value metric. So really focusing on value there. Or at least trying to beat competition. And lastly, hypothesis testing is completed to validate the highest priority every month. Internal disruption is promoted. That is key. Otherwise, you don't have a psychologically safe company and they're not going to keep on moving. It's not a people-centric culture. So the way I easily like to remember it, so those 3 things there, you've got amber, orange, and green. Why do I follow on the same suite as reading organizations? Simple, makes it easy to be honest. Amber is all about your hierarchies and efficiency. Orange is all about outcomes and goals. Green is a people-centric culture that creates collaboration and innovation. Again, it doesn't mean you all have to be green. What I'm saying is that it's a good way of knowing where you are now and therefore where you're going to go. And if you find out you're an Amber organization, but you do your strategy session and you think, actually, that's where we want to be. We're actually going to drive costs down massively. Awesome. You're going to sit in the value add region, then orange is where you need to be right now. If you're not in orange, then you're losing competitive advantage to people who are in orange and they're growing. And you're probably shrinking your possibilities. If you lay in the innovation space, right, or you're looking to get younger people into your organization for whatever reason, then the green is where you want to aim for. Now, bear in mind, if you are looking at all Amber right now, please don't jump to green. That jump is too massive. That's too disruptive. You will lose money. You need to slowly transition over. Vision could be green. If that's the vision you want, that's the way we're going. But I urge you to start where you are and incrementally just move little dials and measure. Is customer value increasing? And you can measure customer value similar to what we've published, which is split into 4 ways: brand loyalty, customer satisfaction, functional value, and price, ergo sales. And you can use those and leverage those however you see fit to increase your customer value. And I always say that it's a moderate correlation around increasing employee value, which increases customer value. So, mindset. Mindset's about how people think. And it's very related to cognitive diversity. What's wrong with a fixed mindset? If we want to improve, we need more people. We need new people, sorry. That's like blaming people, basically. Prescribed feedback is given to individuals and training courses are booked. I know what they need. Feedback loops allow individuals to learn and continuously develop without management approval. Think about like a system of online e-courses. People can choose whenever they want to. Yeah. Happening more and more. And feel free, we've got a Agile 101 course that'll be completely free. Add that to your repertoire. And this business agility course will be completely online over the videos for a very good price in the future. 2021, here we come. And lastly, teams are responsible for continuous learning and teaching new members of the team, and a growth mindset is embedded into our culture. Value chain. So how the value chain from end to end is linked. Now, again, you need to have an understanding of what your value chain is to actually measure this properly. But on a high level, no deliberate strategy for employees. So we have no idea. Organization is mapped based on functional silos with no map to customer value. So we've just done what suits the CEO, basically. Teams are aligned to functional silos within multiple value chains. So you have a team and they're working on 3 or 4 value chains. Think a badly implemented SAFe organization, or people trying to do the Spotify model, but they're actually working on many value chains. This is why you need to identify value chains first before you actually start creating arts or tribes. Some may have virtual teams aligned with a customer value. Teams work within functional silos within single value chain and or no customer has been engaged. And lastly, teams are cross-functional within a single value chain and are aligned to the customer view of that value. Oh, what a great place to be. Transparency. We said earlier on, we need things to be transparent. We need these things to be open to improve automatically. I'm unsure where knowledge is kept. Knowledge is available on management computers. Organizational knowledge is communicated and stored centrally. Think about a Jira or a Confluence that's like stored centrally and admin centrally. Information is freely available to read, but admin is an individual. So that's very similar to the top one, but you can actually get it a lot better. So Confluence pages may be open, you can actually edit things on the fly, but you can't admin it yourself. You can't create things yourself. Very similar, but just slight little difference there. And knowledge is openly promoted and discussed for all to update. Like on Wikipedia, where everyone's an admin. Because we trust our staff, don't we? We all trust each other. Customer at the center. So putting the customer in the center of your organization or every part of the organization is vital for not getting time to market, getting the right product out, increasing correlation with business outcomes, obtaining a competitive advantage. Our products are more important than our customers. When revenues decline, we blame the staff or our customers. It's their fault. They don't know. If they knew our products were better, they'd buy them. Just so you're aware, there's a great study that was done in 2018, and if anyone's interested, message me and I'll forward it to you. It says that more technological products actually were less correlated with success than customer collaboration. High quality staff was less than customer collaboration. More innovation, less than customer collaboration. Customer collaboration was the most important correlation for successful outcomes. So if you're going to focus on one thing, that is more important than what you think. Personas are created by design teams outside of our tribe. So a tribe looking at, what your functional, what your value chain is, problem you're solving, and then there are some design thinking teams over there, and they feed into you. Because you can't do that, surely not. We understand who our customer is and what they need. We have personas, empathy maps, and customer journeys, or something similar. We understand our customers. Lastly, customer has been brought into the team to develop and report back on changes instantly. So we're actually getting real feedback. They really are part of the company. Customer feedback. Look, it's not required. Who needs that? We don't need feedback. Our CEO is the customer. Oh, they know best. Feedback is requested after the delivery of value. So what we'll do is we'll basically do some value, and then we'll basically go back and say, hey, can you give some feedback on that? We have a customer representation inside our team who gets regular feedback from customers. So think about product owners. They're kind of the customer representation. And then the customer is part of the team, allowing us to make rapid decisions based on new feedback. Almost there. And if yours looks like this, by the way, there's something a bit wrong. You'll find it'll be a little bit crazy, but it's not that crazy. Customer alignment, there's no alignment. Each year, your organization's strategy is realigned to what CEO wants. Each manager has a different view of customer value. Centralized vision for customer value, but implemented by individuals differently. So we have, all customer touch points are aligned to a customer vision for great customer value that is agreed to with a customer. So again, we'll bring the customer back in. Oh. So we're on to employee empowerment now. Last 3 questions. We have mostly contractors. Contractors are brought in for programs of work and then released upon delivery. Teams have been created for project delivery, i.e. scrums. You've set up some teams, you've brought some people in. Oh, we're doing scrum. We're very agile. But to me, you're just amber. Why are you amber with scrum in that context? Because you're just creating a project cycle. You're going to undo those teams later on because you know best. Autonomous teams have been created with individual KPIs and management lines, and or team members have titles with individual responsibilities. So yeah, do what you want, but you're actually still reporting to me. Right, so I'm going to create your goals. And that causes a lot of problems, especially if you work in an agile environment right now. You'll find a team, there's a BA, a developer, a tester, etc. And what you find is their manager is over there giving them KPIs that are different to what the team is creating. It causes problems. Teams are self-organizing with authority over what work they complete and have access to the customer and have group ownership of work with leaders who coach the team. If you have that, please hire me. Agile delivery. No work is being started or complete. Kind of crazy. I'm sure it happens. Work is given to teams to do. Not all work is complete before the new work begins. Very common in a highly push, I know best environment. Teams break work down into small tasks for use in a process governed by executives. So think about, again, I'd say a badly implemented SAFe, Scale Agile Framework environment. Execs will create a PI planning. They'll tell them exactly what they have to do, and they'll break the work down. It's still better than having nothing, but it's not optimal. Organizations have implemented a framework such as SAFe or DA. I'm saying properly, right? I'm not saying you say you're doing SAFe or say you're doing DA. You have a delivery mechanism that's a framework you've pulled out. You can answer that Spotify model, less model, everything else, right? Or the Surge model. Teams create their own process based off of objective data and past events. So that's the key bit, right? It's about, we may start off doing Scrum. And I always say, if you're still doing Scrum in 3 months' time, you're doing something wrong. Because you should be iteratively developing out of Scrum very quickly. Scrum is designed as a framework for certain situations. Most likely will not work for you in 2020. Last one, Kaizen. Kaizen towards Zen, towards perfection. You never quite get there. There is no continuous improvement process. We transform our way to improvements through technology or restructures. Happens a lot. It happened a lot in the 90s. I think there were a lot more red organizations in the 90s. There is a process improvement team looking for new ways to increase efficiency. All these Six Sigma, black belt, purple belt, rainbow belt, not sure. And a leader measures outcomes to see if improvements can be made, such as Six Sigma. We use data to continuously test new hypotheses and record the outcomes to make teams' decisions. Cool. What you're going to find is one or two options. You're either going to find they're very, very similar, so amber, orange, and just to give you an example, pretty much all organizations, most of them, were actually amber, with a little bit of red, a little bit orange. That's kind of the common that we found. We've got 400 people in there now, and we're getting more and more data. So please go through, click enter, save that, join the study. We get more data. If we get more data, we share more data. If we share more data, everyone learns together. This is why this is a free tool. This is a free tool because data allows everyone to do better. So if you use this and you found it valuable, promote it. If you use this and you found it valuable, do it again in 6 months' time after your transformation. If it moves, I may give you a call and say, hey, did you increase customer value? We're finding a moderate to strong correlation with customer value in using this. What does that mean? We know that we can link business outcomes and competitive advantage to customer value. We know we can link customer value to increasing this business agility radar. We also know that if you have some divergence, you have mostly amber and then you have a few reds, it's better to go get rid of those reds to create a full circle. That is more important than it actually is to try and grow the other bits. And it had a strong correlation with customer value. Mostly because of employee value, to be fair. Because if you are ever in an organization that's really agile, but over here, all the information is kept under wraps and you can't change the JIRA, it's very frustrating and you end up leaving. Whereas happy staff, happy customers. So you may find you have it very rounded, or you may find massive spikes. If you have massive spikes, it's normally because you've gone through some sort of transformation and the strategy used wasn't rounded. It was literally just a transformation out of a book going in one direction, and you're finding little variances. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm hoping you got some value out of it. So what is the action I want you to take? I want you to reflect on why the 4 values of business agility from Surge: employee empowerment, strategic agility, cognitive diversity, and customer experience. Right? So why are they important? How can they help your organization? Why does every segment matter? And then do a current state analysis. Very high level. Even just do it yourself. If you want to do a real big one, get like 25 people together and take an average. And if you want, message me, and what I'll do, I'll try and bring those figures for you together, right? And use a company code and similar. You'll see in the results, there's a company code. Use a company code that's the same, and I'll be able to find those details for you. And then create your strategy. If you know where you've started, you can then go, where am I going to go now? What's my, as you see behind me, what's my Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3 transformation strategy? What can I do right now to receive benefits right this second? What am I planning for the next 18 months of Horizon 2? What's my long-term cultural evolution for the company in Horizon 3? It's all different. Everyone's bespoke. But you can structure things in a certain way. It all starts with a current state analysis. Awesome. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed, and enjoy your year. Merry Christmas.